All right. Hello and welcome to the BFTAA and More Show. How are you doing on this Monday afternoon? I got a cap on because the top of my head was shining a little bit and the glare was a little bad. So I thought I'd put something to cover up my head. I'm going to have to start putting some powder on the top of my head to stop it from shining as much since I have no covering up there. But hey, welcome to the BFTAA and More Show. I am your host, Louis George Walker, and I'm getting ready to see if I can refresh this chat screen here so that I can see your chats. See if we got a connection there. Yeah. All right. So we've got it. All right, this is the BFTAA and More Show. I am your host, Louis George Walker, a.k.a. Scatter on the DJ scene. But we're here with the Black Family Technology Awareness Association, BFTAA. And in partnership with the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center, we formed a radio station called Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, KUAW. KUAW Radio is a joint partnership between the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center and the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. So we're here to bring you news, information, in the community, from the community, and we're here to also give information to the community. So it's a two-way street. We don't want it to be just one way. We're about trying to end that digital divide. And if you're familiar with the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center, that has been providing tutorial and educational services in the Kansas City area for over 45 years. We work hand in hand with them. We have a robotics class, and we're expanding into doing some podcast training for young people and radio broadcasts. So we're doing some things and hopefully going to even do more as time allows as we keep going and growing. So this is the BFTAA and More Show, and we're bringing you this. We're located at 4510 East Linwood Boulevard in Kansas City, Missouri, in the former Milton Moore Elementary School. So, hey, stop by, holler at us, or drop us a line. Also, we have the live chat up right now. So if you go to our Facebook page at KUAW-org, and you type in a question, a comment, or something, it'll pop up on the screen. I should be able to see it and try and respond back to you as soon as I do. So feel free to ask me anything or comment about the show. And if you don't want to post it on there, send us an email or call into our 816-599-6893. You can leave a message there, but tell us how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you. This is a labor of love, but we're not just trying to be a broadcaster. We're trying to be interactive with you, and we're trying to make more ways that we can be interactive. As just like you enroll your children into our robotics program and stuff, we want you to be enrolled into this radio show and this radio broadcast that we are doing so that we can work hand in hand together on it. Yes. So that's what we're about here. That's what we do, and we hope that you will join us. Also, we work in partnership with other organizations that are working on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So there are some STEAM groups in Kansas City. There are some STEM groups in Kansas City. All are generally working in the same direction, and that's trying to get more of our young people, more of our families involved in technology, and to get our young people to look at careers in the technological field, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Those are pathways to a career to be able to grow and to help this community, help our community, and help your families and yourselves. So we're trying to point young people in that direction and making those pathways open because that diversity is needed in a lot of places, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. That we need to increase the numbers working in different diverse fields, and it can affect you in more ways than you think. You say, well, it doesn't matter who's a scientist, who's an engineer, diversity, all of that doesn't have a big influence on my life, but you'd be surprised. And we're going to talk about that as we go forward in the day. But we always like to bring you some information that is out there pertaining to technology and science. So we go to NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, one, because they post some pretty good information up there on their science, on their space projects and things, and those are a good way for kids to get involved in science and technology. If they like rockets, if they watch the moon shots and the people traveling up to space and coming right back down. But if they have an interest in that, there are so many different fields that you can apply yourself in that. You don't have to just be an engineer, but there's a lot of scientists, doctors, physical therapists, people, and all that work with NASA and this program. So it's something that has a little bit of its fingers or touch throughout the communities. So whatever you're wanting to get into, even if you want to be a writer or a broadcaster, they have to have those there at NASA. But we're going to go right now into what's going on this week at NASA, and this is the first of the month, so we're also going to be showing you some of the things that are up in the sky, the stars to look for, the moon and its position, things that'll be going on in the night sky that you can go outside and look at with your children, or children, if you like that, you can go out there yourselves and start finding different constellations and different things that are up in the night sky. So we're going to take it right now into what's going on this week at NASA.
Upgrade work continues outside the space station, an updated strategy for landing Artemis astronauts on the moon, and unsealing pieces of the past. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. On March 23rd, the crew on board the International Space Station conducted the second spacewalk this month to continue upgrades to the orbiting laboratory. During the outing, NASA astronaut Rasha Shari and European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer worked to install new thermal system and electronics components on the station's U.S. segment. They also worked to install a power and data cable on the Columbus module's Bartolomeo science platform, replace an external camera on the station's truss, and conduct other upgrades to station hardware. Also on March 23rd, we announced plans to create additional opportunities for commercial companies to develop an astronaut moon lander that can transport humans between our lunar orbiting space station known as Gateway and the lunar surface for missions beyond Artemis 3, which will be the first mission to land astronauts on the moon in more than 50 years. The announcement is part of a strategy by the agency to pursue two parallel paths for continuing lunar lander development and demonstration, one that calls for additional work under an existing contract with commercial partner SpaceX, and another open to all other U.S. companies. This effort is meant to maximize NASA's support for competition and provides redundancy in services to help ensure NASA's ability to transport astronauts to the lunar surface. One of the last unopened Apollo-era lunar samples collected 50 years ago during Apollo 17 has been opened at our Johnson Space Center in Houston. Sample 73001 had been kept vacuum-sealed and in pristine condition in anticipation of the day that scientists equipped with advanced technology could examine it. The Apollo Next Generation Sample Analysis Program is studying the sample and others like it as we prepare to send astronauts back to the moon for more samples on upcoming Artemis missions. On March 21st, the number of confirmed exoplanets or planets outside of our solar system ticked past the 5,000 mark. The milestone was reached when the latest batch of 65 exoplanets was added to the NASA Exoplanet Archive. This stream of exoplanet discoveries that began 30 years ago includes contributions from NASA's TESS, Kepler, and Spitzer space telescopes, with more discoveries possible in the future from our James Webb and Nancy Grace Roman space telescopes. On March 22nd, the newest U.S.-European sea-level satellite named Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich became the official reference satellite for global sea level measurements. This means that sea surface height data collected by other satellites will be compared to the information produced by Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich to ensure accuracy. The satellite, which is named after NASA's former Earth Science Division Director, the late Dr. Michael Freilich, was launched in November 2020. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
All right. That's some of the things that are going on in NASA right now. And we're glad to be checking them out. So that's what we want to keep bringing you is information like that you can use that'll be beneficial and helping you understand what's going on at NASA. That's a big thing in space, and then looking at other planets that are out there. They're searching the stars for a lot of other planets, and they're starting to find them. And, who knows, one may be capable of supporting life, or one may already be supporting life on it. We don't know. So that's what's interesting and really exciting to look at. I was looking at an article that I got. Miss Tammy Buckner had posted this, and she's she works with We Code KC in Kansas City. Well, she's the founder of We Code KC, works with a lot of young people. She was in the news recently because they have the old fire station down on 26th and Prospect, 25th and Prospect, that the city had let them lease for, I think, $1 a year, but now they have to move out of it by August, or I guess buy the building. It's supposed to be going up for sale. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to that building and if she'll have to move her program, because they've been in there working with kids. And now the city decides, well, they don't want to be landlords with these buildings. And that can be for small nonprofits, moving or getting a building is a great thing, but then having to move right away or move again becomes a problem, because a lot of times you've expended funds or you've done things to get set up, and those funds don't come easy. You have to work and strive to get money back again. So we'll keep following what's going on with We Code KC and the property that they have that they are leasing from the city or renting from the city that they're supposed to move out of in August. So hopefully we can maybe get her on the show. So Tammy, look out, I may be sending you a note that we can get you on the show and talk about what's going on with We Code KC and the whole issues that you have with maybe having to find a new home. Those are things that we want to stay abreast of, because one of the things they wanted to do was create a hacker space in that building. And our group, I was talking with my robotics coach about being maybe able to use the hacker space some. And those are things that we don't have in the community right now. And a lot of times using the tools and those type of things would be really beneficial, especially for it to be controlled by the community itself. So, I see your picture. Yeah, there I am. I'm up here now. So, somebody was looking for me. You could hear me, but you couldn't see me. But I'm back. So we need to do that because we have to continue to increase the number of African Americans that are in these technological fields. We've been around. I posted today our robotics program started 10 years ago. I just posted on Facebook our first robotics class that we had working with NSBE alumni here in Kansas City. We posted that was 10 years ago. Man, time flies, but we worked with young ladies there. One of them happened to be my granddaughter, and she's a college graduate now. But looking at those pictures, they were all so young and starting and learning about technology, learning what they could do. And the young ladies that put together a couple of robots then, they went on, they demonstrated their robots at the state Black Caucus meetings that they had. They had a conference down here in Kansas City, and they were there with their robots. They also were down at the Power and Light District when it was pretty new back then, and they demonstrated their robots on a Disney Science Day down in the Power and Light. So these young ladies got to show what's possible and what kids in our community can do and can put together. So if you get a chance, go to my Facebook page, KUAW Radio, and you'll see that. I'm also going to post it up on our Black Family Technology Awareness page. But it's been 10 years that we've been working with the VEX Robotics program. and we hope to work another 10 years with them. But we're also working with other robotics companies and other things that are going on, because there's more than one way. It's just like there's more than one brand of cereal on the shelf. There's more than one thing that can get you into STEM. We actually have a Spiro robot that we're wanting to start some training with young people, younger than our middle schoolers, on Spiro, where they can learn programming and work. We started that with a grant from Google just as COVID was hitting, so we had to kind of pull back, but we're getting ready to roll that out now, and we're going to have the Spiro as soon as we can find an instructor or somebody that wants to work with the kids. So we always like to put it out that we can use more volunteers. Our volunteers, like working with the robot program, you can't ask the volunteers to take on another program because a lot of them have jobs and other things that they're doing. But if you're out there and you'd like to work with the young people, and you say you want to work with drones, or you want to work with the Spiro or the robotics and stuff, get in touch with the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. Go to our Facebook page, BFTAA. It says Black Family Technology Awareness Association dash BFTAA. Put that in there, will come up. Or you can go to our webpage, www.bftaa.org. And there's a volunteer sign-up form there. You can see it right in the middle of the page. We put it there so you can't miss it, because we can always use volunteers that want to help out in the community. And you don't always have to be here. We can use some virtual volunteers to help with the programs and the things that we are doing, and a lot of the back office work of taking care of the books or designing programs and curriculum, that type of thing. We can use you if you're in China, or if you're in Mississippi or New York or California, and you would like to help us be able to better serve in the community. Contact the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. We'd love to work with you. Now, we're going to go back to NASA right now in their Space to Ground show or podcast, so that you can see a little bit more of what's going on. So here we go now with Space to Ground from NASA.
Houston Station on Space to Ground.
Touchdown. Mark Vande Hei and Pyotr Dubirov back home 1 year after leaving the planet.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Nilofer Ramji. NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei came home this week after a record 355 days in space. Vande Hei arrived at the space station last year on April 9th. His time in orbit breaks the previous American record held by former NASA astronaut Scott Kelly by 15 days. As scheduled, Vande Hei returned to Earth on Wednesday, March 30th, alongside cosmonauts Pyotr Dubirov and Anton Shkaplerov. As we prepare for deep space exploration of the Moon and Mars, missions like Vande Hei's will inform researchers on the effects of long-duration life in microgravity.
What we're doing, in effect, is practicing keeping people healthy on a long trip through space. The big difference is when we get our first folks to Mars, we're not going to have a staff of nurses and doctors there to make sure we're healthy and take care of us. So being able to contribute to that is something I will always be very, very proud of.
During his time on the orbiting laboratory, Vande Hei participated in and conducted many
That was Space to Ground. That's another podcast from NASA. Lets you see some of the science that's going on, what's happening up on the International Space Station. And as they say, getting ready to go to Mars. One of the things I was looking at when he came down, that, yeah, they've got to work on some things because he couldn't walk. They had to carry him out of there. So, he's, standing up, getting used to gravity again after being up in space for a year is something that's going to be a problem if they go to Mars, because as he said, they're not going to have doctors and nurses and people waiting on them when they get to Mars. They'll be getting there after a long flight. Mars is months away from Earth, so it's not like they could go to the moon where it just takes them a few days to get up there. It's going to take them a while to get to Mars. And as we talk about deeper space travel and exploring like he wants to do, we're going to have a lot more science, a lot more information on how people can adjust to no gravity, or can we come up with some artificial gravity that would be useful. So that's the thing that we have. Somebody says there's no sound out there now. I guess we didn't get to hear that. Well, we may have to play that again. Sorry that we didn't have the sound for you. All right, but we're still here. Let's see, I got the sound button on. Yeah, my desktop audio may have been off. Sorry about that. Well, I tell you what, we'll get some sound on for the next one that we show you, because we want you to know now it's April. We're getting into the Passover month. So it's time that we need to be able to look up at the stars and see what's going on in the moon, and we're going to look at that right now with What's Up. The first of the month, every month, I like to show this because they give you what's going on for the whole month with the stars. So let's take a look now at What's Up. This is from the Johnson Space Jet Propulsion Laboratory. That's where it's from. Okay, here we go with What's Up from NASA. Well, I think doesn't seem to want to start. We may have to skip it today. Doing too many shows. Everything else went okay, and now we had to always run into one technical difficulty in a day's time. Let's see there. Let's try there we go.
What's up for April? Conjunction Junction, and a hidden surprise in the Big Dipper. At the beginning of April, Venus, Mars, and Saturn form a trio in the southeast before sunrise, with Saturn appearing to move steadily toward Mars each day. On April 1st, they're a couple of finger widths apart. And by the 4th, Saturn and Mars are separated by less than the width of the full moon. Saturn then moves on, increasing its separation from Mars each day as a new addition to the morning sky makes its debut. By mid-month, Jupiter is starting to rise in the pre-dawn hour, making for a quartet of planets strung out in a line across the morning sky. Heading into the last week of April, Jupiter will be high enough above the horizon in the hour before sunrise to make it more easily observed. The two brightest planets in the sky, Venus and Jupiter, are headed for their own ultra-close conjunction on April 30th, similar to the meetup of Mars and Saturn earlier in the month. In fact, they approach to about the same distance. Of course, the planets are actually far apart in space, and only appear to move closer or farther apart in the sky as our view of them across the solar system changes from month to month. If you recall the grand conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at the end of 2020, these conjunctions are not quite as close as that, but still really impressive, and they'll make for thrilling sights in the morning sky, so definitely try to catch them if you can. Whether you call it the Big Dipper, or Ursa Major, or the Plow, it's probably the most familiar pattern of bright stars in the northern sky. The Big Dipper is a really useful reference for finding your way around the sky, but it also contains a hidden surprise. One of its stars is really 2, or actually 6. Let's break that down. What looks on first glance like a single bright star here midway along the Dipper's handle is, on closer inspection, a double star, Mizar and Alcor. Next time you have a chance, try to see if you can perceive them as 2 stars with your own eyes. Once you give it a try, then grab binoculars if you have them, which will easily show them as separate stars. The two star systems are around a light year apart and are located 80 light years away from our solar system, with Alcor taking just shy of 1 million years to complete an orbit around Mizar. Now, lots of stars are bound together by gravity in small groups, especially in pairs or binaries that orbit around each other. But usually it takes a telescope to be able to see them as separate stars. Mizar and Alcor are a rare example of a double star that you can see as a pair without the aid of a telescope. But it gets more interesting. Although they appear as a close pair of 2 stars, they are in fact 6. Alcor is a binary pair of 2 stars, while Mizar is actually 4 stars, 2 pairs of binaries. So find the unusual double stars Mizar and Alcor in the Big Dipper in April, where what at first appears as 1 star is in reality a 6-star system. Here are the phases of the moon for April. Stay up to date with all of NASA's missions to explore the solar system and beyond at nasa.gov. I'm Preston Dykes from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and that's what's up for this month.
All right. So that's what's going on up in the night sky. So that gives you something to look at. And if you ever go out camping, well, wait a minute. We got to close this out. It's starting again. Okay. I'm hearing it again. Just a second, guys. Yep, there it is. See if we can stop this. There we go. Yeah, I don't know why that one seems to never want to cut off by itself. I have to go in and manually stop the video. But that's one of the things that happens around here. There's a lot of technological things going on. Well, hey, it's 5:30 in Kansas City, and it's been a spring-like day. It's not super hot, which you don't want it to get too hot too fast at this time of the year. So its temperatures are gradually warming up, and I think that as it should be. So we're getting ready to go into the final 15 minutes of the BFTAA and More show, and we're going to go talk about some things a little bit more down to earth that we're working with and we're concerned about. I'm going to be talking about this for the next couple of weeks. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is an article that I picked off of our page that we're partnered with, and that's the KC Black Tech Community. And it was posted up there today or yesterday, I think. So anyway, it was published March 29th, 2022, and it comes from the CIO Dive. So CIO is generally Chief Technology Officer or Information Officer, the IT department. But anyway, the article's title is 7 years. In 7 years, there's been a 1% increase. Black representation in tech barely improving. That's something that we have to look at. At the Black Family Technology Awareness Association, we started almost 20 years ago, and our goal or our thing was to get more African Americans into technology. We needed more African American scientists, engineers, and all of that. And that was a national program. It started with IBM and Career Communications pushing Black Family Technology Awareness Week. And all of it was to get companies, to get people involved in getting more into science. And we looked at in the last 7 years, there's been a 1% increase. So the proportion of black professionals in technical roles at large tech companies increased just 1% from 2014 to 2021, according to a report from the Capor Center and the NAACP that was published Tuesday. The study analyzed publicly available company diversity reports, among other data sources. Black professionals occupy 3.7% in technical roles at large tech companies, despite making up 13% of the overall labor force, the report finds. Similar inequities play out in the highest ranks of big U.S.-based tech companies where black workers represent just 4% of executive leaders. Black executives occupy only 4.4% of seats on boards. So these are things that we have to look at, is that if we want to increase this, it's got to start with a lot of, not start, but it's got to be happening in a lot of places. If you don't have black executives, you'd end up with not maybe that many black technology experts. It's not, because there's a pipeline that goes up. A lot of your executives come through those ranks there. Says in recent years, top flight tech companies devoted resources, laid out plans to address diversity and cultural challenges within their organization. Despite efforts, the data shows that improvement has been minimal in terms of racial competitions of the IT workforce. So Jesse Jackson was one of the first to bring attention to the fact that Silicon Valley had a problem with diversity. And at first they were thinking he was just looking for something else to do or some other thing to latch onto, but it's true. It is a true thing, and a lot of companies, after there was attention brought to it, started looking at it and wanted to try and figure out what they could do. But so far, it hasn't happened. It says we haven't seen the increase because there hasn't been a real commitment to addressing the issues that have kept people out, said Rachel Goins, a co-author of the report and a director of program implementation at the Caper Center, a nonprofit that's focused on diversity in tech and entrepreneurship. Companies have failed to put in place cultural change that enables retention of black tech workers. Once they do get through the door, Goins said, such as biases in the assignment of key projects, black IT workers have a shorter average tenure than their non-black counterparts, according to the survey of 400 tech workers from executive search firm Russell Reynolds and Associates. Black tech workers change jobs every 3.5 years compared to 5.1 years among non-black tech workers. To address IT staff diversity and to aid in the tech talent pipeline challenges, companies often turn to targeted training initiatives such as apprenticeship and internship. So that's the thing, because even this contrast is even more pronounced among workers with 10 years of experience or less, that they're having to move. They're not getting the right assignments. They feel they have to go somewhere else. Yet leaders in IT haven't been able to connect the thread between programming and hiring. So they've had a lot of apprenticeship programs. They bring in black interns, all of that. But then a lot of them don't stay, and a lot of it can be the culture of the company. You know, because if you don't feel wanted, you might not necessarily feel you should stay at that place. So some companies have said, we're going to do this. We have apprenticeship. We have interns that are coming work, and they go to HBCUs and all. But sometimes you have to look at what was the experience of those that went to these internships that they feel that they don't stay, that they end up turning over their jobs a lot more than others. Says there are these programs, but there isn't actually a commitment to say that you will hire some percentage of these graduates, said Goins, and it should be a high percentage. The way forward for companies seeking to improve their retention and attraction of black IT talent lies in tracking the data points of entry and retention. How are resumes being reviewed? How are people's hiring experiences going? You should follow up with folks who did not get hired or choose not to join companies to figure out why, said Goins. That is data that should be tracked. So it's not clear exactly, but what they're saying is after 7 years, there hasn't been much change in the IT workforce, in them moving, in them getting hired, in them taking in more jobs. So we want to get African American and blacks into the pipeline, but the door still has to be not just open, but welcoming for African Americans and women to come into these jobs and do a good job there. So that's a thing that we have to look at, and there's even more to it. some people were saying and will say about artificial intelligence, AI. If you know, a lot of that is starting to get into our lives in a lot of different ways, and it says there can be bias in artificial intelligence. Yes. So we thought, or we was thinking when it was abstract, that if you had the computers making the decisions on things, that it would be more fair. You would have less discrimination. But what we're finding out is that computers only work on the information that they were given. And there can be bias, not necessarily intentional, but there still can be bias in the computer's algorithm and the way it's set up and the way it does. It says there's more to AI bias than biased data. So that can be a thing that needs to be looked at and is being looked at. There's an African-American woman that's got a company working on this. But the bias in AI, and you say, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, it has a lot, because a lot of companies now, banks, mortgage companies and stuff, use AI to determine, or at least to start the determination if a person should get a loan. So if that computer, that AI, that artificial intelligence, when you first fill out that application online or at the kiosk, if it has a bias, it may knock you out to where you never even get to where a person can look at it to see if you need the loan. When you talk about policing, if there's a bias in the machine that say in a computer that says more people in this area are likely to commit crime, then do the police go out looking at everybody in that community as a suspect? The AI pointing to a fact that, well, there's more crime in this area, that there's more people committing crime, could cause people, the police, and even the public to perceive most people in that area as being criminals. And that could be a big problem. That could be a problem in the way law enforcement interacts with people. That can be a problem with selling a home and all of that. So those biases can still be there, even though you say, well, the computer did it. The same thing goes with courts, and a lot of judges are using artificial intelligence to determine sentences. Who is more likely to commit a crime again? And those type of things, so that, and if it's biased, then you and the guy next to you who may be of a different skin color could do the same crime and get 2 different times, even though the computer is the one that's suggesting it. So we have bias that can be in things that affect you every day, from hiring, from getting a loan, buying a home, those type of things, because a lot of that information is being turned over to the computer, at least at the first round. So that if the computer scores you bad, then a lot of people may not even get a chance to see it and say, oh, well, this person really is all right. And so this person really has a clean record, has never done a crime, is outstanding, but he comes from that area where all the criminals are, and the computer might have said, oh, this is a high-risk person to take in the first place because he comes from that area. So we have to look at that. It says, as a step toward improving our ability to identify and manage the harmful effects of bias in artificial intelligence systems, researchers at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, these are the people that help set it up, recommend widening the scope to where we look for the sources of these biases, beyond the machine learning processes and the data used to train AI software, to broader societal factors that influence how technology is developed. So it's not just the data, that it still can be systematic bias, that can be racist, it can be sexist, any of that built in to some of the AI software. Yeah, that's a thing that we have to look at, and they're forming, or they're looking at how to set up checks and balances to work with this. It says that AI systems do not operate in isolation. They help people make decisions that directly affect other people's lives. So that's what you have to look at when you say AI isn't anything. You've got to make sure that you're getting a good response, because the AI bias can be a problem, and context is everything. If we are to develop trustworthy AI systems, we need to consider all factors that can chip away at the public's trust in AI. Many of these factors go beyond technology itself to the impacts of the technology, and the comments we received from a wide range of people and organizations emphasize this point. Bias in AI can harm humans. AI can make decisions that affect whether a person is admitted into a school, authorized for a bank loan, or accepted as a rental applicant. It is relatively common knowledge that AI systems can exhibit biases that stem from their programming and data sources. For example, a machine learning software could be trained on a data set that underrepresents a particular gender or ethnic group. The revised publication then says that excuse me, while these computational and statistical sources of bias remain highly important, they don't represent the full picture. So we have to look at human biases can relate to how people use data to fill in missing information, such as a person's neighborhood of residence, influencing how likely authorities would consider the person to be a crime suspect. So there's a lot of things that we have to start looking into, and I'm going to start giving you a little more report of what's going on in AI, because that's affecting us every day. That's affecting the community, that affects children, that affects a lot of us. So we can't not look at this. And as I look at the things that can happen and how it can be misused, because a computer, as they say in the old school of computer, garbage in, garbage out. So if data and stuff is wrong putting in, if the setup or what you're asking it to do is not really set up right, then it can be faulty and it can cause a problem. And AI, or artificial intelligence, has a promise of making things better, but it's not going to do it automatically. No, it's going to take a lot of oversight and a lot of setting up. So we're going to look at some of the things that are going on with it so that you're aware of it and that you may speak to it when it comes to elections or whatever. Is that, you know, AI can be biased, that there can be things that are set in it that cause us problems, and we need to make sure that we are getting what we bargained for with artificial intelligence. Well, I thank you for listening to the BFTAA and More show today. I want you to keep listening. Hopefully I can bring something that will be of interest to you. And if you have some information or something that you want to send back to us to talk about, or that you disagree or agree with what I'm saying, be sure and let me know. You can hit me up on Facebook. That's at the BFTAA site, or on the KUAW radio site. Either one of them. So go to Black Family Technology Awareness Association or to KUAW Radio. Also remember that you can email us at KUAW985@gmail.com. And you can also go to BFTAA@sbcglobal.net. So that's my time for today. We got another show coming up in a minute. Stay tuned for B. Michael Long and Shifting Paradigms. It'll be right here on KUAW Radio. This might be him right now. Yeah, so I will get him as we end this show. So talk to you later next week. Join the BFTAA and More show right here at KUAW Radio. I'm